Welcome to the Sensory and Power podcast. I'm Bethany, your host. I'm a holistic occupational therapist with over a decade of experience in supporting individuals helping to transform their world through sensory empowerment. This podcast is your guide to the transformative world of sensory storytelling, holistic tools, and empowerment strategies. Welcome to another episode of the Sensory and Power podcast. I am your host, Bethany, and I'm really excited to share kind of what it feels like to present as someone who is sensory sensitive. So last week's podcast, I talked all about being a sensory seeker and the things that I seek in my world and how much input I need and some different strategies and just some fun sensory shares about what the world is kind of like when you just need more input and have a bigger cup. In this week's episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about what it feels like to have a smaller cup where you might be hitting that threshold of feeling overwhelmed, your cup is overflowing into sensory overload, and kind of what it really feels like to be a sensory sensitive person. I have moments and have really found some powerful tools that have helped me increase my threshold to engage with different activities, but specifically auditory input, so ear input, the things that might be too loud, too much, having difficulty filtering. I've really found some powerful tools that had helped me in the areas where I definitely had more of a sensory sensitive experience, where things were just too much. So I just want you to maybe pause for a moment and just consider if you've ever felt like things are too bright, so that visual sense, too loud, auditory sense, maybe too much touch, so you've got maybe different fabrics, a tag, maybe a tight waistband that just seems to be like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. Maybe when there's increased emotions or increased stressors in your world, just considering if some of those added pieces, like that specific texture or that specific waistband kind of digging into your hips, possibly scratchy sweater, or maybe like a certain smell that just like, oh, I can't handle this. So this episode is really all about strategies and ideas that might be able to help you feel seen, heard, and hopefully empowered with some strategies that might be helpful from a general educational standpoint on just tapping into what it might feel like when things are just too much and what we can do about it. So when we're thinking about sensory sensitivity, imagine that you're walking into a room and the lights, maybe fluorescent overhead lights, are super bright. Maybe one of them is like flickering and you're getting this kind of repetitive flashing from the sky, from the ceiling. And maybe thinking about that overall just instinct to squint, close your eyes, maybe cover your eyes, maybe want to even put on sunglasses in sometimes those moments. I remember many moments of working with clients and just hearing sensory shares throughout my world of being an occupational therapist. And, it's just too much. And I support in going into schools frequently and looking at the classroom setup. And if those overhead flickering lights continue, it just has such an intensity that kicks in that can really flip our system into a state of overwhelm where we're just kind of overloaded. We're not able to process that visual input and it just becomes too much. So that's kind of your body's strategy, right? Is to squint, close your eyes, move away. It's just too much. I'm moving. I'm going to move away from the stimulus that is too much or the senses are turned up far too high. So I'm going to pause and see if we can just kind of block that input that is overwhelming for your system. And maybe, thinking about loud noises. So maybe it is like a siren or a sudden alarm or a sudden, movement of the door or a squeak of a chair on the floor. For some people, that can be excruciatingly painful, where it really hurts the ears, and it's this like, cringing, like your muscles might be tightening up, your system might be perceiving that sudden and loud noise as danger, and so it's getting into a heightened state. And as we've reviewed in previous podcasts, like that deep compassion and that deep like self-love and self-acceptance of, thank you body for protecting me, I'm so appreciative that you have this instinct, this reflex to be able to really truly protect our system. However, a lot of times it is tapped and turned on far too quickly, where this loud noise is a perceived threat, but not a true threat. And so our system can go into a state of overwhelm where we've kicked definitely more into that higher arousal level. Maybe our muscles are more activated, our eyes are really open, we're kind of maybe, jumping our eyes back and forth. We may have gone into more of an immobilization state where we're just kind of disconnected and slightly dissociated, and that is that protective tool that our system can go into as well. Just kind of glazed over, like that was too much, it's too overwhelming, and now I'm just kind of out of it, glazed. That's the true sign of overstimulation. And so when we think about even like the idea of like smells, so that sensation of walking maybe into like, thinking like a department store like Macy's or something like that. That first spot, when I walk straight in through a Macy's, it's perfumes. And there's different perfumes, maybe different colognes, different scents. And it is quite overwhelming walking through the entrance. And I recognize that I take a moment of pause before I go in. So I maybe have just parked my car, I'm walking, I'm thinking about my feet grounded into the ground. And, I walk through that first door into like a department store. And I, I have these moments where I'm like, do I really need to be here? Like questioning. And then I'm like, no. I have a task. I'm, searching for this specific kitchen utensil or whatever it may be. Or I'm, going on a hunt for, a bargain pair of shorts for summer or something like that. Like I've got a task, right? Got a task. And I'm headed into the community and I'm really trying to use some tools prior to going into what can be a very overstimulating environment. So a lot of times there are pretty brighter lights. We might have those overhead fluorescents. They might be, situated in different ways, like round versus that bank of lights. But a lot of times there are quite a few different scents that might be lingering and intertwining together, and kind of having them all interconnected can be hard for our olfactory sense, our smell sense, to try to discriminate and figure out and filter and categorize, and it can just be a lot. So some things that I really love is if you are into essential oils or you have a favorite smell, having, a bracelet that can have, I have a few that have like the lava rock beads where you can actually put like some of your favorite essential oil onto it, or a scrunchie or a hair tie that can hold, even having like a tissue with some drops, just like a couple drops of your favorite essential oil, maybe in your pocket or in your bag, and just having that and just like, oh, I'm just wiping my nose, I'm just rubbing my nose. We can have that as the grounding scent that then starts to block out all of the other smells that might be in the environment. So those are kind of some examples of when things can be too much, but this can be for every single sense. So we can think about, our movement sense, right? When we're thinking about like spinning or that vestibular processing, my head in space, my body awareness, that proprioceptive piece, my interoceptive awareness, my heart rate beating out of my chest and my bladder yelling at me, and I can't even focus or concentrate on the activities because I have such powerful internal cues. Those can be signs where sometimes they can be distracting from our attention and our focus if things are not getting calibrated and organized in our brain appropriately. So when we think about being sensory sensitive and kind of what it means, it really is that your brain and your body are reacting very strongly. They're reacting in a way of protection frequently, and it is in a state where you might be quickly filling your cup and having that moment of overload of either maybe a bigger emotion, like I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm maybe moving away quickly, I'm maybe getting agitated or frustrated or anxious just because there's so much going on and I'm feeling sensitive. And it's like those senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, tasting, movement, sense, whatever it may be, those senses are really turned up probably too high in some of those moments where it might be hard to ground ourselves throughout the day. And so I really just want to share kind of some of those examples of real life experiences. When I work with clients, we're talking through those scenarios of, what could be a precursor. So what could be a tool that might be helpful to ground your system prior to. So we kind of talked about, how if I'm walking into a store and I know it might be an overwhelming place, I am noticing my feet, maybe I'm squeezing or I'm pushing on my hips, and we'll go through some fun tools soon, as well as, talking about the olfactory piece. So using something like essential oils as a cool little hack that can be very grounding and support our system and really support us feeling definitely in a state of kindness and compassion towards ourselves when you're feeling overwhelmed. So some other grounding and kind of simple tricks that you can maybe think of to take charge in those moments or as a precursor prior to an experience. A lot of times we don't know what we're walking into, especially in the community. It can be a quick, sudden overwhelm moment. And so I want to kind of provide the maybe precursors of things that you could do prior to, and then things that you can do while you are in it as a kind of response to. So I think one of the best ways that I feel like I can feel really calm, and when I'm noticing I'm moving into a state of overwhelm, is to ground and move my body. So I'm focusing on I'm here now, so that beautiful mindfulness component of awareness of the present moment. And grounding can be deeply powerful. So we're maybe, taking a break when everything is feeling too much. So we're maybe moving away, maybe pushing on our hips. Wall leaning is a very lovely tool. I use it very frequently. So just standing with your back against the wall and maybe pushing gently with your heels and just noticing this sensation. You can kind of rock back and forth and maybe, pushing your hips into the wall and just notice that your body is strong, stable, it's present, it's here, it's holding you up. Maybe a moment of gratitude for all of this anchoring that your body is able to receive during that pause moment. Some other ones, self-hugs and self-massage. Give yourself a big hug. Wrapping your arms around maybe your elbows is one I like. So interlocking, opposite hand to opposite elbow and just kind of squeezing, or maybe even like stretching and leaning your body a little bit, just kind of shifting your position, maybe rubbing your neck and noticing what it feels like, giving yourself a little bit of this comfort and deep compassion and care in those moments when you have hit a moment of overload. We can also think about strategies kind of in the moment. So we talked about using essential oils as a tool for scent. And when you might be overwhelmed by the other scents in the world, we can focus our brain in on, nope, I'm going to smell this one thing that I know is very comforting for my system. And that can be a powerful way to not only mask some of the other overstimulating smells, but you're frequently taking some big, beautiful, deep breaths through your nose, which is bringing just such a powerful calming response for the body. So that one's kind of like one of my favorite tools because it is kind of a double whammy. You're going in and you're going, I love this smell. I know I love this smell. I frequently will just carry around a bottle of my favorite essential oils in my work bag or in my purse, whatever it may be, carrying it in your pocket. A way to have one of those tools with you pretty consistently is just empowering because you know you've got this backup support tool. So the other thing to think about is if earplugs, like the foam earplugs, if those fit your ears and you like those, just having those. They a lot of times have little travel cases that might have a little keychain and they can be put on. One that I use really frequently and will even give examples to people when they're asking, what are those? Oh, is it too loud right now? And I'm like, actually, it is feeling a little bit too loud. And just openly sharing, that might not be for you, but it also could be a way of expression of your sensory needs in that state. And I feel like that's why I love coaching through and supporting clients, of helping them feel empowered with the language to express, hey, this is just a sensory need that I'm trying to meet right now, and this is something that really, really helps me feel calm. It's a way where you could maybe express. So if earplugs are a thing for you, there are a couple other ones that are pretty discreet. They look like earrings. They are called Loop, Loops. Loop earplugs, and these are cool because they are very form-fitting. They've got different sizes, but they also have different decibels. So one that I think I've used a couple different types. One is definitely more of a blocking of sound, higher decibel, and then they have ones that are called the Experience, and those ones you can still hear all of the conversations. It's just helping to damper out any of the excess background noise. So you can still hear, engage. It just is like just simmering it all down to allow your brain to process what is the most important information, dampering out any like sudden loud. It just kind of just slows it all down and allows your brain to filter and process with a little bit more ease to help you really feel more comfortable, more focused on what you're doing, maybe in the community, maybe in a conversation. So when we think about, even with these strategies, sometimes it can be tough to manage all of those big feelings and sensations. And that's where this really, really beautiful program called the Safe and Sound Protocol can come in. So this is something that I have been certified in the Safe and Sound Protocol as a certified provider, and I have loved implementing this program. This is a program that I have used about 3 years ago when I was doing a coaching program and just really working on somatic release and nervous system regulation. And it's so powerful. So it's a therapeutic listening program, and by listening to these 5 hours of specifically designed music that gradually start to build up the frequency of filtered music, which can help your brain, your body work together, helps to reduce that overwhelm with loud noises, and help just ground your system into more of a calm state, that parasympathetic nervous system state, telling your body you're safe, you're connected, you're present, you're here. And I've really seen some wonderful growth with my clients that I've been working with using this program in shifting, where things are just improving overall. So I'm engaging in the community. I'm having less big emotional reactions overall, feeling more confident, more empowered, more grounded, feeling like it's like a brain tune-up. Really, truly, there's some powerful stuff happening with this filtered music. And it is polyvagal theory based and developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, who's the creator of polyvagal theory. So it's got some very wonderful research behind it. If you think Safe and Sound Protocol might be helpful for you, if you have any questions about it, I'm here to help. I am a deep believer in supporting and making sure that this is something that I'm easily clarifying. And I'd love to jump on a call. So you can book a call with me to learn more about how the Safe and Sound protocol can make you feel like days can be brighter, more comfortable, more engaged, and feeling more confident and grounded within yourself. And just remember, it's okay to feel the way you do. You're not alone. There are lots and lots of people who are experiencing this moment of sensory overwhelm, and digging into, with a little bit of curiosity, maybe about some of the tools that we talked through today. Some essential oils, maybe having a go-to necklace or bracelet or scrunchie or something like that that you can have as a calming tool, taking a deep breath through your nose, having something like earplugs or using loop earplugs that are specifically designed for helping to have the experience but not overstimulation, grounding tools such as like squeezing your toes, pushing your hips, leaning against a wall. All of those can be really, really powerful strategies to help when you are feeling in a state of sensory sensitivity, when things are too loud, too bright, too overwhelming. And know that there are some very powerful tools that can help you to feel more engaged and grounded. And I really am so honored and grateful to be supporting clients. So I thank you for listening to the Sensory Empower the podcast. Until next time, stay curious, stay calm, and don't forget to take good care of yourself. Thank you for joining me on this sensory adventure through Sensory Empower the podcast. Remember, empowerment begins with awakening your senses. Subscribe now and embark on a journey of self-discovery and transformation. Until next time, may your senses guide you towards a life filled with peace, joy, and empowerment, because true empowerment begins with embracing your senses.